నన్ను నమ్మిదే వస్తారు. అయితే వీళ్ళు వచ్చి ట్యాంకులో లేవుని దిగ నేను లోపలికి నేను తీసుకుని నాకు ఏదైనా పర్వాలేదు వాళ్ళంతా దించలేను లోపల దిగ నేను తెలియదు వాళ్ళకు. రోగాలు వచ్చింటే కాళ్ళు పుండ్లు అయిపోతాయి, చేతులు పుండ్లు అవుతాయి. చెప్పని మాలదు రోగం అంటే దేవుడు అది టైం నాకు చెప్పని మాలదు. అది ఇంతవరకు 30 సంవత్సరాలు చేస్తున్నా, అన్నీ చేసేది నేను ఒకదా. దానివల్ల ఇప్పుడు నువ్వు అడిగినట్టు మేము పోకపోతే మాకు కష్టంగా ఉంది ఇంట్లో.
నా పేరు నాగమ్మ, నేను సెంట్ థామస్ మౌంట్ నుంచి మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. నాకు కన్నయ్య అనే హస్బెండ్ ఉండు, పిల్లలు 2, శైల, ఆనంది. మేము 2003లో చెన్నైకి వచ్చినాము ఇక్కడ పిల్లల్ని చదివించుకొని బాగా ఉండాలని. కానీ మాకు వచ్చిన తర్వాత మా ఆయన 2007లో ఎదురు చూడకుండా ఇలాగ విషవాయుతాకి చనిపోయిండు. అయితే ఆయన ఆ పనికి చేసేవాడు కాదు, బేల్దారి మేస్త్రి. ఆయన ఎందువల్ల పనికి వెళ్ళిండో నాకే తెలియదు. అప్పుడు రోజుల్లో 300 కూలి. నేను పనికి వెళ్ళను, పిల్లల్ని చూసుకొని ఇంట్లో ఉంటా. 300 అనేది సరిపోక ఆయన సరే ఎవరో చెప్పిండ్రు అని చెప్పి పనికి అప్పుడప్పుడు వెళ్ళి వస్తుంటాడు. నాకు తెలియదు. అయితే ఒక తడవ చూసినాను, పండుకున్నప్పుడు నైట్ 12 గంటలకు వచ్చి సైగ్గా నీళ్ళు పోసుకుంటుంటే కాల వాసన వస్తూ ఉంది. లేచి ఏంది బురద వాసన వస్తుందంటే ఇలాంటి పనికి పోయినంటే నేను అప్పుడే అరిసినాను, మీరు ఇట్లాంటి పని అంతా చేయొద్దు, ఆ పని నుంచి మనకి ఎంత వస్తుంది కాకుంటే ఒకరోజు పూట గడుస్తుంది అంతే కదా, వద్దులే పడే కష్టం పడవచ్చు, మీరు అవి పనికి పోవద్దని చెప్పినానని నాకు ఇంకేం చెప్పకుండా మళ్ళా ఒక తడవ ఆ పనికి వెళ్ళేటప్పుడు నాకు చెప్పలేదు. చిన్న ఆయన మనముడు వచ్చి చిన్నమ్మ చిన్న ఆయన చనిపోయిండు అట్టని షాకింగ్ న్యూస్గా నాకు చెప్పిండు. చెప్పినప్పుడు నేను ఏం చేయాలో నాకు ఏం అర్థం కాల. చనిపోయిండు అంటుండే ఏందని చెప్పి నేను అక్కడే పడక మీద నుంచి లేచి మా అమ్మ పడుకుని ఆమె కాలు తొక్కి వెళ్ళిపోయేసినట్టు మా చిన్నాయన వాళ్ళ ఇంటి దగ్గరికి. అప్పుడు మా మామ నన్ను చూసి పక్కకి వెళ్తూ ఉండు, ఏమైంది ఏంది ఎవరు ఏం చెప్పరంటే లేదు ఇలా కన్నయ్య వచ్చి గుంతలో దిగి చనిపోయిండు, అందరు చనిపోయిండ్రు, 3 వెళితే 3 చనిపోయిండ్రు అన్నప్పుడు నైట్ అంతా చింపుకొని ఇంకా నాకు అర్థం కాకుండా ఇంక నేను వచ్చేసినాక అమ్మోళ్ళంతా ఇంటికి పట్టుకొచ్చిండ్రు. సరే అని చెప్పి ఇంక నేను మనం కూడా ఎందుకు బతికేది, మనం కూడా చనిపోదామనే ఫీలింగ్ నాలోకి వచ్చేసింది. వచ్చినప్పుడు 2 పిల్లలే నాకు ఆదరు. అప్పుడు వాళ్ళు వచ్చి మమ్మీ మీరు చనిపోతే అట్టా మేము ఉండలేదా, మా కోసం బతుకు, మమ్మల్ని చాకు మమ్మీ మేము చూసుకుంటాం అన్నప్పుడు నాకు ఇంకా నా మనసుని చంపుకొని సరే దేవుడు ఇచ్చిన 2 బిడ్డలు మనకు ఉండరు కాబట్టి వాళ్ళ కోసం మనం బతకాలని చెప్పి ఇంకా నేను అక్కడి నుంచి ఆంధ్ర నుంచి ఇక్కడికే చెన్నైకే వచ్చేసాను.
The government itself is the problem and they are the problem creators. They are not resolving the problems at all. इसका कारण क्या होते हैं, ये सोच नहीं बदला आज तक. सरकार का सोच भी है, ये मैनुअल स्कैवेंजर है, स्कैवेंजिंग करे तो गलत नहीं है. बंगी का काम करना ये उनका कर्म है, वो तो करना पड़ते हैं. ये सोच है. कभी सोच ना बदलेंगे काम नहीं बदलेंगे.
வணக்கம், என்னுடைய பேர் சாமியல். நான் சஃபாய் கரம்சரி ஆந்தோலனில் தமிழ்நாடினுடைய மாநில ஒருங்கிணைப்பாளராக இருக்கிறேன். சஃபாய் கரம்சரி ஆந்தோலன் மனித மலங்களை மனிதர்களே அள்ளக்கூடிய அவல நிலையை போக்கும்படி இந்திய தேசத்திலும் குறிப்பாக தமிழ்நாட்டில் கடந்த 30 ஆண்டுகளாக நாங்கள் பணிகளை செஞ்சுக்கிட்டு வரோம். 2003வது வருஷத்தில் தமிழ்நாடு அரசாங்கம் மனித கழிவுகள் அள்ளக்கூடியவர்கள் இந்த நாட்டில் யாருமே இல்லை என்று சொல்லி ஒரு தகவல் கொடுத்துருந்தாங்க. ஆனால் சஃபாய் கரம்சரி ஆந்தோலன் மூலமாக தமிழ்நாட்டில் நாங்கள் 2007வது வருஷத்துலேருந்து 10ஆம் வருஷம் வரைக்கும் நாங்கள் ஆய்வு செய்ததில் ஏறக்குறைய 1000 பேருக்கு மிஞ்சின மக்கள் இந்த தொழில் செய்து கொண்டிருந்தாங்க. நிறைய உலர்ந்த கழிப்பிடங்களும் தமிழகத்தில் பல மாநிலங்களில் பரவலாக இருந்தது. நாங்கள் கொடுத்த அந்த ஆய்வு அறிக்கையின் பேரில் தமிழக அரசாங்கமும் எடுத்து அந்த உலர் கழிப்பிடங்கள் எல்லாவற்றையும் ஃப்ளஷ் அவுட் டாய்லெட்டாக மாற்றி பிறகு மனித கழிவுகளை மனிதர்கள் அள்ளக்கூடிய நபர்களுக்கு மாற்று வேலைகளையும் மறுவாழ்வையும் கொடுத்து உதவி இருந்தாங்க. ஆனால் அதற்கு பிறகு 2013 வருஷத்தில் 2013 வருஷத்தினுடைய மனித கழிவுகள் மனிதர்கள் அள்ளக்கூடிய தடுப்பு சட்டமும் மறுவாழ்வுத்துக்குரிய இந்த சட்டத்தின்படி செப்டிக் டேங்கில் இறங்கி வேலை செய்கிறவங்களும் பாதாள சாக்கடையில் இறங்கி வேலை செய்கிறவங்களும் யாருமே இருக்கக்கூடாது என்ற ஒரு தடுப்பு சட்டம் வந்திருந்தோம். அரசாங்கம் அதன் பேரில் நாங்கள் ஆய்வு செய்து பார்த்து அப்படி யாருமே இராதபடி முயற்சிப்போம் என்று சொல்லி 2017 வருஷத்தில் அவங்க ஆய்வு செய்து முடித்த பிறகு சொன்ன ஒரு அறிக்கை வந்து தமிழகத்தில் வெறும் 462 பேர் தான் இந்த வேலை செய்கிறவங்க இருக்கிறாங்க, மற்ற யாருமே செய்கிறதில்லைன்னு சொல்லியிருந்தாங்க. ஆனால் சஃபாய் கரம்சரி ஆந்தோலன் மூலமாக நாங்கள் ஒரு 8 மாவட்டத்தில் 8 பகுதியில் மட்டும் நாங்கள் ஆய்வு செய்து பார்க்கும்போது ஏறக்குறைய 3000க்கும் மேலான இந்த மக்கள் இதில் பணி செய்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறாங்க. குறிப்பாக ஒரு பகுதியில் மாத்திரமே ஏறக்குறைய 300க்கும் மேற்பட்ட மக்கள் இந்த வேலை செய்கிறவங்க இருக்கிறாங்க. அப்படி இருக்கும் பொழுது தமிழகத்தில் சரியான ஒரு ஆய்வு அறிக்கை செய்யும்போது நிச்சயமாக அது அதிக அளவில் லட்சக்கணக்கான மக்கள் தமிழகத்தில் இந்த வேலையில் ஈடுபட்டு இருப்பாங்க. 2018 வருஷத்தில் மக்கள் மலக்குழியில் இறங்கி இறந்து போகிறாங்க. 19வது வருஷம் இல்லைன்னு சொல்கிறாங்க, 19வது வருஷமும் உள்ளே இறங்கி இறந்து போகிறாங்க. 20வது வருஷத்துலேயும் இறந்து போகிறாங்க. 21 இறந்து போகிறாங்க. 22வது வருஷத்தில் இது வரைக்கும் கூட ஏறக்குறைய ஒரு 6 பேர் விஷவாயு தாக்கி இறந்து போகிறாங்க. இல்லை என்ற ஒரு அறிக்கை அரசாங்கம் கொடுத்துக்கிட்டு இருக்குது. யாருமே இந்த வேலை செய்கிறவங்க இல்லைன்னு சொல்லும்பொழுது இத்தனை பேர் ஏறக்குறைய இந்த 3 வருஷத்தில் மட்டுமே கிட்டத்தட்ட 60க்கும் மேற்பட்ட மக்கள் விஷவாயு தாக்கி மலக்குழியில் இறங்கி இறந்து போயிருக்கிறாங்க. 60 குடும்பத்துக்கும் மேற்பட்ட குடும்பங்கள் தங்களுடைய தகப்பனை இழந்திருக்கிறாங்க, கணவரை இழந்திருக்கிறாங்க. உடைய வாழ்க்கை மிகவும் கேள்விக்குறியாக இருக்குது.
పనికి సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంక్ పనికి వెళ్తున్నామంటే ఆ సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంకు ఒక దిక్క వచ్చేసి మేనలు పెట్టుంటారు, ఒక 2-3 చోట మేనలు పెట్టుంటారు ఓపెన్ చేసి తీసే మాదిరిగా. ఒక్కొక్క దిక్క చూస్తే ఫుల్ క్లోజింగ్లో ఉంటుంది, మామూలుగా ఎట్ట గచ్చు ఉండదు ఆ రకంగా ఉంటుంది. ఆ దిక్కు వచ్చేసి మనం ఆ మేనలు కనిపెట్టి ఎత్తితేనే తప్ప అది కానొస్తుంది, లేకుంటే రాదు. అట్టప్పుడు ఫుల్ క్లోజింగ్లో ఉండే మేనలు వచ్చేసి ఏమైపోద్దంటే మనము తీసేటప్పుడే గ్యాస్ ఎగర కొడుతుంది, దాన్ని వచ్చేసి జాగ్రత్తగా తీయాలి. రెండవది వచ్చి గ్యాస్ ఫామ్ అయ్యే విషయం ఎట్లా ఫామ్ అవుతుందంటే దాంట్లోకి ఈ యాసిడ్, ఈ బ్లీచింగ్ పౌడరు ఇవన్నీ వేసి కడిగేదాని వల్ల అది మొత్తం పోయి లోపల పోయి ఒక సిల్ట్ మారిగా అయిపోతుంది. వైట్ కలర్లో ఒక సిల్ట్ మారిగా అయిపోతుంది. దాన్ని ఒక మావు మారిగా తనీగా ఒక మావు మారిగా వచ్చేస్తుంది. ఆ మావు అనేది వచ్చేసి లోపల వచ్చేసి ఫుల్ గ్యాస్ ఫామ్ అయ్యేది. కొంతమందికి అది తెలియదు. ఒక్కొక్క టైంలో ఒక అగ్గిపుల్ల గీసేసినా కూడా బగ్గుమని మంట. కొంతమంది వచ్చేసి అది ఆ గ్యాసు ఓపెన్ చేయకుండానే కొంతమంది టక్కున లోపల దిగారు. ఆ మేనల్ ఓపెన్ చేసి 2 గంటల సేపు తాలినాక దాంట్లోకి దిగాలి, లేకపోతే మనకు ఆ గ్యాస్ అనేది ఎఫెక్ట్ అవుతుంది. కొంతమంది తాగితే దిగని మాలుతుంది, దాంట్లో తాగకుండా మనం దాంట్లో చేయని మాలు ఏమంటే మా పని దాంట్లో విస్పర్ అంటే ఇవి అంటే అన్నీ నానాకి ఉంటాయి. అయినా కానీ అవన్నీ అశుద్ధం అంతా మనము భరించాలంటే ఆ ఒక చుక్క తాగితేనే దాంట్లోకి దిగి ఆ పని మనం చేయగలుగుతాం. కొంతమంది దాంట్లో దమ్ కట్టలేక మూచి తినరి, ఆ గ్యాస్ ఎఫెక్ట్ అనేది స్ట్రైట్గా హార్ట్కి పోయేది అవుతుంది. ఆ సమయంలో మనం ఏం చేయని మాకు ఆ పక్క మనిషి చెయ్యి అందిపోయలేక ఈ మనిషి లోపల ఇదైపోయి ఉంటాం. ఇంకా పైకి తీసి ఏమేమి చేసినా కానీ ఆ మనిషిని కాపాడుతున్నాం. ఆ రకంగా చచ్చిపోయిన వాళ్ళు ఎంతోమంది.
2013లో సామేల్ సార్ వాళ్ళ ద్వారాగా సఫాయి కర్మచారి అనే ఆందోళన మూలంగా నేను ఏకంలోకి వచ్చినప్పుడు సారు ఇలాగ చనిపోయిన వాళ్ళకమ్మ 10 లక్షలు ఇస్తున్నారని చెప్పినప్పుడు నేను వాళ్ళతోటి చాలా దిక్కలు పోరాడినాము. బస్సు యాత్ర అంతా పోయినాను. ఇలాగా నాకు జరిగినట్టు ఎవరికి ఏ అన్యాయం జరగకూడదు, ఏ కుటుంబానికి ఇలాంటి పరిస్థితి రాకూడదు, ఇది జరిగింది ఏదో మనతోటే పోతే బాగుంటుంది అన్నట్టుగా నేను ఇంకా వాళ్ళతోటే ఉండి ఇప్పుడు కూడా వాళ్ళతోటే నెంబర్గా ఉంటున్నాను. వాళ్ళ కోసం వాళ్ళు ఎక్కడికి పిలిచినా వెళ్తాను. ఢిల్లీ వరకు కూడా వెళ్ళి వచ్చినాను. ఇలాంటి పనులు ఎవరు చేయకూడదని. అప్పుడు మాకు 10 లక్షలు డబ్బులు వచ్చినప్పుడు పిల్లల్ని చదవాల్సి ఉన్నాను. ఇప్పుడు ఆ డబ్బు పెట్టి నేను చదివించుకున్నాను. గవర్నమెంట్కి అంటే 10 లక్షలు అనేది ఒక ప్రాణానికి వాల్యూ కాదు. అదిగో 10 లక్షలు వచ్చినాయి, 4 సంవత్సరాలకు చదువుకి అయిపోయినాయి. మళ్ళీ ఎప్పటిలాగా మా బ్రతుకులు అదే కష్టాలతోనే పోతున్నాయి. పర్వాలేదు అయినా కూడా అని మేము ఇప్పుడు కూడా నేను ఇంకా ఎందుకంటే ఇంకా ఎంతమంది పనులు ఇంకా దిగి చేస్తుండ్రో అటోళ్ళనంతా ఎత్తుకులాడి చేయకూడదనే ఒక వైరాగ్యంతో నేను వాళ్ళతో పాటు ఇంకా నేను మీటింగులకు అక్కడికి వెళ్తున్నాను.
சஃபாய் கரம்ஷன் ஆந்தல் மூலமாக நாங்கள் பல பகுதிகளுக்கு சென்று மக்களை சந்தித்து அவங்களுக்கு விழிப்புணர்வு கொடுத்து அவங்களுடைய நிலையை அறிஞ்சு அவங்களுடைய விருப்பத்துக்கு ஏற்ப அவங்க இந்த விரும்பி யாரும் இந்த வேலை செய்யாத அவங்க இந்த வேலையிலிருந்து வெளியே வரணும் என்று விரும்பும்போது அவங்களோடு இணைஞ்சி சம்மந்தப்பட்ட பேரூராட்சி அதிகாரிகள் இடத்துலையும் சம்மந்தப்பட்ட நகராட்சி அதிகாரிகள் இடத்துலையும் சில நேரத்தில் கலெக்டர் மாவட்ட ஆய்வாளர்கள் இடத்துலையும் போய் நாங்கள் சந்தித்து நிறைய மனுக்களை கொடுத்துருந்தோம். அவங்களோட பேசியிருந்தோம். இனி இந்த நிலை வராதபடி நீங்கள் சரியான ஒரு நடவடிக்கை எடுக்கும்படி சில நேரத்தில் மக்களாகவே சந்தித்து நிறைய மெமராண்டம்ஸ் கொடுத்துருக்குறாங்க. ப்ரெஸ் மீடியா மூலமாக தெரியப்படுத்தி இன்னொரு பக்கம் அரசாங்கத்தையும் இது உணர்ந்து இந்த மக்களுக்கு உடனடியாக ஏதாவது ஒரு தீர்வு செய்யணும் அப்படின்றதுக்காக அரசாங்கத்தோடும் அரசாங்க அதிகாரிகளோடும் நாங்கள் செயல்பட்டு கொண்டு பணி செஞ்சுக்கிட்டு வந்துட்டு ஐஐடி மெட்ராஸிலிருந்து சில ப்ரொஃபஸர்ஸ் எங்களை தொடர்பு கொண்டாங்க.
I am Prabhu Rajagopal, professor with the Department of Mechanical Engineering at IIT Madras. My research interest is in the remote inspection of structures. I develop various sensor techniques as well as robots for reaching locations inside engineering structures that cannot be accessed in any other manner. For example, deep inside a pipe or inside a tank or underwater or under when a structure is in high temperature or radiation and so on. So it was in this context that we had developed a robot for inspection of pipelines many years ago. And then when we were looking for applications of this robot, we thought that sewers could be a possible application. So we went and checked out the sewer lines at IIT Madras, and we came away with quite a shock at how challenging and difficult the problem was. Now during this period we were interacting with various stakeholders, and we came in contact with the Safai Karamchari Andolan, and they informed us that actually the greater problem is in the septic tanks, because in the septic tanks the water is stagnant and the contents can get coagulated and they can form even the material properties can become as hard as rocks as such. And this is why human beings are entering into these tanks. They are entering to break down these hard sludge so that it can be sucked out using some machine. So they said, can you look at this problem? And then because my training is in inspection and in developing remote inspection systems, we first developed a robot to go in and get views inside tanks. We call this a Sepoy robot. So the robot was swimming like a fish. It had fins. That was an innovation, because in these types of environments, if you have a rotary propeller, that is not going to work. So we innovated on something we had done on the side on fish-like propulsion, and we developed this robot. And it was really, it's a beautiful machine. We just recently got even an IP granted on this machine as such. But when we went to the Safai Karamcharis, they felt that this is great, but it's really not solving the problem. You can go inside the tank and tell us, for example, where the tree roots are or where there is coagulation, but actually the real problem is in helping to homogenize the contents. That is when we got into this second phase of this project, and at this time we also had a student called Divanshu Kumar. He came up to me and said, can I do a project that is socially relevant? So I involved him in this project, and this was part of his final year master's dissertation. And that's how we got into the design of this HomoSEP robot. What you see today is actually a third or fourth version of this robot we developed at that time.
Hi, I'm Divanshu and I co-founded Solinas Integrity along with my professor and some batchmates from college, where we are working on robotics and digitalization of assets for water and sanitation. Personally, I'm a very social impact person where I like to leverage technology for social impact that can be later commercialized or leveraged for impacting people. And when I was working as a dual degree student under both the professors, we got this problem statement of developing a prototype for septic tank cleaning. And once I visited the place and met the mallow scavengers, it was really moving for me to understand the challenges that they face. And it was sort of unacceptable for me to understand why this problem was not solved yet. And so during the final year, started working on that. The idea was to develop a prototype that can actually, if not develop a product commercially, give us a direction that we are moving towards solving the problem.
So once Divanshu came on board, we took some time and went to see the Safai Karamcharis. In the beginning, my idea was to take the same HomoSEP robot that we had developed, just add some cutters onto it. 3 sides we will have cutters, so it will go inside and sort of homogenize locally. I did not even anticipate the challenges that would be there, because to be able to do this kind of process, the robot would have to have a great amount of staying power. If you don't stay in a place, you will have reaction forces that will push the robot away. So that was one challenge anyway from the engineering perspective. But we realized that in that time we were doing some literature survey, and we realized that the contents of the septic tank are actually not a normal fluid. They are what we call in engineering sense a thixotropic fluid, meaning if you start cutting the rotating the fluid, it will get harder and harder to rotate further as such. And then when we went to the Safai Karamcharis also, they felt that some local quick fix kind of solution is not going to work. You need like a proper homogenization solution. That's when we came back, and this is the socio-technical process, as you say, social. So the Safai Karamcharis provided us the practical insight. We interacted with women who had lost their husbands to the sanitation work, and that provided us a very poignant scale of the social problem here. And it also was a motivation for our students, because until then they were looking at this as a project, something to get credits from and all that. Then it became something more than that. And so it built the motivation. It also gave us the practical insights.
It was challenging for us to imagine how their life would be manually cleaning those things. And so like that couple of days, I sat down with them and tried to really understand what are the challenges that they're facing in the septic tank. How could we actually solve that problem? What are the fundamental principles that will help us, allow us to create a product? And then we went back to the drawing board and we started doing it again. Another learning that we had was that we cannot develop this product on our own. We have to get constant feedback from them. So every couple of months, in partnership with this organization called Safai Karamchari Andolan, we used to meet mallow scavengers, Safai Karamcharis, and we would ask them whether this is going in the right direction. And then over a period of time, we have been able to develop this. So once we developed the prototype, after 6-7 months, we again had a display for them, and they gave us feedback about what can be improved. And that's how our product development process has improved. One of the key challenges that we faced in the earlier stages was that people had not developed this before. So you do not have benchmarks on what you could take up and what you could not. So there was a lot of R&D process that we went through. We failed a lot of times in developing our prototypes, and that's why that process has taken a lot of time. Other challenges was that we did not have sludge for testing, because fecal sludge is a matter that can be very infectious and smelly. You cannot have it in your lab to do all the testing with respect to blades and desludging, right?
So to solve the first problem, we studied a lot regarding the fluids in the tanks and what their behavior is. It can be hazardous to handle as such. So we developed materials that could mimic these behaviors, and we have a laboratory of Professor Abhijit Deshpande in IIT Madras. It's a rheology lab, and over there we have a rheometer by which we can test the mechanical properties of these fluids. So we kept developing materials, kept testing them until we found something that has a behavior that is matching with the septic tank fluids as per the literature. Then we built a test tank with these contents and tested the robot in this tank itself.
Then we essentially identified certain septic tanks within college itself where we would be able to test the prototype that we had created. So these are the multiple stages of challenges that we faced. One of the main challenges that we have seen right now is about the distribution of these robots, questioning who should we give this robot to, who should own this, whether it should be the corporations or the local contractors or the Safai Karamchari self-help groups themselves. So right now we believe that we have a potential to do more, and hence we would want Safai Karamchari groups or the corporations to come forward and take this robot from us so that we can create maximum impact.
So now marketing, whenever you develop a product, we have a terminology called technology readiness level to quantify its field deployability. When you have an idea, for example, it is TRL 0. When you have a proof of concept, it's TRL 1. When you have a laboratory trial done, it is TRL 3. TRL 4 to 9 is field deployment, is a series of mock-up to real tests as such. So now, usually in an academic setting, this is called a valley of death, because we develop a technology, nobody will be able to take this up immediately because it is still not there in the field deployable stage. This is where the marketing part flounders, because we can have patents granted, we can have papers, but we don't have a product that is really applicable in the field. So now we are fortunate IIT Madras is home to a huge startup ecosystem, and we had a startup in our lab called Solinas that came out of our own students. So Solinas was interested in this project, and through them we started navigating this valley of death, as we call. And after graduation, Divanshu joined Solinas. Today he is the CEO of Solinas, and several of our students also graduated and joined this startup. So they sort of navigated this valley of death for us. And I don't see marketing to be a challenge today, because there is a real pressing social problem. There is no solution. There is only we are providing the solution. There has been huge interest in our product, to the extent that it sometimes scares us that are we living up to this expectation? Are we providing the best that we can over here? So that has happened as such, and that's how we are tackling the marketing issue.
And over a period of like 8-9 months, we were able to come up with a prototype that, in constant feedback with minor scavengers, we realized that will actually be able to solve the problem. And hence I stayed on, built a team along with other PA friends, and we actually have Solinas Integrity today, which is focused towards solving problem in water and sanitation. And specifically one of our key products, flagship products today, is HomoSEP, which is for cleaning of septic tanks. My motivation was primarily about social impact, and this felt like a problem where I could create a lot of impact on. So and we were able to get some good recognition and won some awards where we had some initial capital to be able to continue working on the product, which is also sort of a motivation for us to continue. We were able to hire a couple of team members who were equally passionate about it. One of the things that we realized was the tractor version that we had made is for industrial septic tanks, for bigger septic tanks. But we also realized that we have more septic tanks which are residential, which are in smaller villages, and for that we have contextualized the solutions. So for example, one of the versions that we have, which is called HomoSEP trolley, is where we have made this trolley that can be fit to any LCV that is there, and it has 1/3 of it is into a form of a tanker that will store the sludge, and within that itself we have a desludging mechanism through which it goes inside the septic tank that is there, desludges it, and then puts it back into the pump. Now it can be taken to far off places as well. Hilly areas are there, mountains are there, it can be taken there. Now another thing that we also came across was where people said, what if the septic tanks are in the corners, or what if it is inside the house? How do you solve that? So for that we have done a very mini version of the thing, which is into a small vehicle where it can actually be, so let's say if it is on a vehicle that is there, the desludging unit is there, the pump is there, the tank is here itself. This desludging unit can be taken to a small corner of the house where the hole is, and it will desludge the whole system, and then it will pump it out. For that we have also made an elbow based mechanism that in case the manhole is not at the center where the desludging in the sort of circular way can happen, we can have an angular mechanism through which we will be able to desludge those systems and then suck it out. The idea is to cater to any kind of a septic tanks that are there and get the actually hardened sludge at the bottom of the tank outside without any manual intervention. So actually a full service model which will have the tractor, the tanker and everything can go as high as about 24-25 lakhs because it has a lot of systems in there. The new vehicle will be there. But the smaller systems that we have, the range will start with that we are aiming is to start from 10 to 12 lakhs itself, where after subsidies that can be given to the individual people, it can be owned by a small group of like micro entrepreneurs who can then provide a service in their villages or in their cities. So that is one of the financial model that we are looking up to, where we can actually empower the locals or the Safai Karamcharis who were doing it manually earlier. If they are able to take the ownership of these machines and can do the cleaning in their own villages or in the small cities, that could really be good.
This project is a unique example where you have 4 or 5 vectors that have come together. One is a pressing social and economical problem. We have a involvement of an NGO in the form of Safai Karamchari Andolan. We have a university, which is us, which is myself, Professor Krishnan, who is the head of our lab. We are involved in this problem. We have students who are motivated in this problem, who have come together to create a startup that can commercialize and take this solution to the field. And finally, very importantly, we also have had very strong support through corporate social responsibility channels.
We actually got some CSR support from NSC Foundation, LTTS, and from there the cost of the machine was borne by them. And then what we did was we took the some of the Safai Karamchari widows, like people, the wives of Safai Karamcharis who had like lost their lives in cleaning the septic tanks. We made them the entrepreneurs there, registered a partnership firm, and gave the ownership of 3 of the machines so far to them in various parts of Chennai. What they do now is either via the government or via the private calls, they get some orders for septic tank cleaning, and then they are able to essentially clean those septic tanks and earn money for that.
Win Foundation first supported us. Divanshu told you just some time back, we won the National Bio Entrepreneurship for a prize in 2019. Later, Gale Foundation came and supported us to develop this HomoSEP robot a little bit further. Capgemini Foundation funded us during the COVID period to miniaturize the robot and do those 3D printed trials and so on. NSC Foundation has given support for 8 robots. L&T has given support for 2 robots. So through these channels we are going to now make and distribute 10 units. In the coming year, some more support is coming, is what we hear.
So the long-term plan for commercialization for us is actually via 2 routes. One is to find, and that's where we are looking for more support as well, to find more villages and cities where like either the city commissioners or municipalities or the village panchayats, they can take up 1 machines each and get some of the Safai Karamcharis on a contract who will do the cleaning as per the need basis, and then the cost of the capex can be recovered by the number of cleanings that they do. We can also look for a financing model for that. So that is one way where directly we are able to give 1 or 2 of these machines to the villages or to the cities, and they become independent on their own. The other model could be the scale up via the CSR initiatives and government subsidies, because government is also via their Sakhai Mitra Suraksha Challenge and Namaste scheme that they have just launched. They have actually started doing a lot of support for the Safai Karamcharis, where subsidies up to 3 lakhs or loans up to 12 to 15 lakhs are also provided. So using these schemes, we can really empower and again create models of micro-entrepreneurship, where in each of these villages, people themselves are able to take charge of cleaning their septic tanks in a mechanized manner.
மெட்ராஸ் ஐஐடி மூலமாக கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டதான இந்த ஹோமோசெப் எனப்படுகிற இந்த கருவி மலக்குழியில் வேலை செய்கிறதன் மூலமாய் விஷவாயு தாக்கி இறந்து போன கண்ணன் அப்படின்றவுடைய மனைவி நாகம்மாவுக்கு அதை கொடுத்துருக்குறோம். மெட்ராஸ் ஐஐடி மூலமாக வழங்கியிருக்கிறாங்க முதல் முறையாக.